나가는 발달장애인이 있습니다. 그 여정에 함께하는 위드 슬로우 스타터 캠페인을 시작합니다. 더 많은 첫걸음이 시작될 수 있도록 발달장애인의 출발을 응원해주세요. 공익광고 협의회.
The time is now 7 o'clock.
Earlier this week, the United Nations Weather Agency warned that the greenhouse gas emissions reached a new high last year. So definitely not good news. And we definitely felt the impact of all of this with a hotter, much longer summer and natural disasters that accompanied this summer. And this has reaped what? Very expensive costs, specifically 2 trillion won for 불경 in the last decade or so. Renewable energy and climate measures are no longer an option as the price tag of climate change keeps rising for all of us. I'm Catherine. This is Morning Wave in Busan on Thursday, October 31st on BEFM 부산영어방송. Good morning, everybody. I can't believe I said October 31st, the last day of October, which means, we're going to have to proverbially, turn the little page over on the calendar. And what does that mean? We have 2 months left as of tomorrow for the calendar year. And the thing is, this year was really marked by this summer. It was just, really, really long and hot for us. In other parts of the world, heavy rain, strong winds, flooding. And I'm going to actually talk about flooding in Caspic later on. But the cost of climate change is quite heavy. And we can actually put a price tag on this, nearly 2 trillion won in the last 11 years. This is according to a Climate Research Institute climate solution and DP lawmaker Mo Kyung-jong, who released this report on climate change damages this week. So this covers damages from heavy rain, typhoons, wildfires, cold snaps. So we're talking about things like flooding as well, and heat waves. So between the years of 2013 and 2023, South Korea as a whole suffered from 4.1 trillion won of direct damage from natural disasters. And it took 11.8 trillion won in recovery costs, which was triple the amount of direct damages. And during the same period, 341 people were killed or went missing from such natural disasters. And the biggest culprit was typhoons, 태풍, responsible for nearly a third of the damages, followed by wildfires. So we're talking about like 산불 and also cold waves. And even when it came to these natural disasters, there was a regional imbalance. And so we're going to address that issue, that part of this whole story a little later on. For now, though, it is time for our text topic. And this is such a fun one. All right, so there was a Timothy Chalamet lookalike contest over the weekend, which got us to thinking, who is your celebrity lookalike? So we're talking about maybe looks, maybe the way you speak, maybe you can do an impression of them, right? So if you're checking in with us on our YouTube channel, you see photos of Timothy Chalamet and his lookalike. So I hear he popped up. That's the winner. That is not Timothy Chalamet. No, that is not him. I'm just saying. Okay, so apparently this guy was crowned the winner. We'll get into that in a little bit. But who is your celebrity lookalike? 자, 주말 동안 배우 티머시 샬라메 닮은 꼴 대회가 있었는데요. 네, 아주 조금이라도 나는 이 사람 닮은 것 같다. 혹은 이런 이야기를 들었다. Because I know some people will say, I don't really look like anybody. However, 이런 사람이 저한테 그런 얘기 한 적 있어요는 분명히 있을 것 같아요. 그렇죠? 그래서 아니면 유명한 사람, 뭐 성대모사라도 가능한 사람은 누굴까요? So send in your messages to BEFM's live stream live chat on YouTube. So like I just said, we have our own channel. Search for BEFM or 부산영어방송. You can subscribe, log in, and chat away with our waivers. On your phone, pound 9050 샵 9050. That's going to cost you 101. We also have a Kakao Talk channel. Same thing. Search for BEFM or 부산영어방송. You can send in your messages. And how about this? Our producer, PD님한테 허락 안 받았는데 혹시 like if you're okay, like you can send in like a celebrity photo of like who, the person that you supposedly look like. And we'll see if we can get that going as well. So you can listen to us or view us in so many different ways. Like I said, we're live streaming right now on YouTube, but also 90.5, 103.3 FM. If you're in the Busan area, that's on the radio. And we have two apps, the BFM app, which you can download. That's free. And also we're available on the Patbang app as well. All right. So here we go with what we have for you today. We have for Thursday, Chris. He's coming in for Beyond the Headlines. And then Haeyeon for City Insights. For our special interview, of course, a countdown. We've been counting down to the U.S. election, the presidential election for several months now. It is less than a week away. So we're going to talk about Pennsylvania in particular because Pennsylvania is going to be a very crucial battleground state. So we're going to zero in on that state specifically, plus other issues related to the presidential election with our expert. That's coming up in hour number 2. And I'll be back with today's headlines. It is now 7:06. These are today's headlines. Seoul to begin talks with Kyiv to step up response against North Korean troop deployment. The presidential office said yesterday that it will begin talks with Ukraine this week over a visit by Kyiv's special envoy to South Korea, adding it is necessary to find ways to send South Korean analysts to Ukraine to monitor North Korean military activities. North Korea completes a long-range missile launch prep. North Korea has completed preparations to launch a long-range missile and has put a mobile launcher in place, with a launch possibly to take place before or after the U.S. presidential election. South Korea reports season's first avian influenza case. The Agricultural Ministry confirmed the season's first highly pathogenic avian influenza case yesterday at a farm in Donghae and issued a standstill order on poultry farms nationwide. SNU deepfake crime suspect sentenced to 10 years. The 40-year-old Park, who was found guilty of producing and distributing fabricated pornographic videos of his school alumni, has been sentenced. His accomplice, surnamed Kang, received a 4-year prison term. Harris and Trump continue battleground states tour in the final week of election. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris continue their tour of crucial battlegrounds, and both are holding competing events in Wisconsin and North Carolina in the final week of the U.S. presidential election. And these are today's headlines. is now time to say hi to Haley with a straight face. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so I'm trying to keep a straight face because I was reading some of your messages. Ah.
All right.
Oh, okay.
You
So
guys.
I'm going to read one, okay, about our text topic. 고수 waiver says 저는 BTS V 그리고 유지태 닮았다고 하고 점점점이 네?
I mean,
그래서 제가 표정 관리가.
I know he's married, but if this is true, do you have a single brother?
고수님, send in your photo.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, send in
if
your
he
photo.
looks like V and Yujite,
Right.
and his
We're good to
brother,
go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
not you, me.
Yeah. Vicariously through you. Vicariously.
Yes.
I live vicariously through single people like Haley. And so, 고수님 사진 보내주세요. So we can kind of put up the two side by side, and we can. Oh, you know we're laughing with you, not at you.
Yeah,
so
we're
don't take
laughing
offense.
out of affection.
Of course,
as
of
we
course.
will.
We laugh at ourselves.
And here's the thing,
Yes.
like, just, I mean, well, I'm not going to say this because my face is up here, like literally up
Yes.
here. But if you're not going to send in a photo,
yes.
you could look like young Leonardo DiCaprio for all we care.
Right. And by the way, we're not judging anyone's looks. 평가하는 거 아니에요.
Right.
But you know, it's just like
It's for fun.
It's for fun. So who do you think you look like? Or
I don't think. Can we not? Not libel me into defame me into saying that I say I look like this. I have been told.
okay, who have you been told you look like? Our producer's laughing already.
조여정이요. 16촌. 조여정.
조여정.
So I tell people. 그래 조여정 16촌 정도의 느낌이 있어요 제가.
No.
She could have a normal looking, 16촌 far cousin. Average looking.
네네. So
네, 그렇습니다. Who do you look like?
I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna take a hard pass on this because we
we were
I
allowed to
don't want
pass
to-
apparently. Okay, good to know.
No.
Good to know.
I'll think of something. I'll think of someone. Okay. So let's get to our first update. First, Busan story is related to our main topic at hand, natural disaster prevention.
Right. So Busan City being a city surrounded by waters, flooding is unfortunately
Yes.
a common occurrence, especially in and around these urban streams. So Busan City is going to work on installing these huge rainwater collection tunnels as a fundamental solution for this flooding problem. So the drainage area under or on around near Oncheoncheon, that's been selected by the Environment Ministry for its sewage maintenance program. So this stream in particular has seen 14 flood damages in the past decade. So it basically happens every year plus some.
Okay.
So usually what happens with urban streams, not in the case of Oncheoncheon, is that the city or municipality will install pumps to release the excess water when the water swells from the rain to the lower streams. But why Oncheoncheon, why they can't do that here is because it is almost directly affected by rising sea levels. So it's hard to release that water if there is a high tide on top of heavy rain.
I see.
So Busan City, what it's going to do is install an underground rainwater tunnel to release that water via the tunnel. And good news, because it's been selected by the Environment Ministry, it has about a third of its budget covered by state government or central government funding.
Yes. So that's what's going on. And of course, natural disasters, the whole entire story today. Next up, let's talk about drive-through restaurants and cafes, which have become very commonplace here in Korea these days, right?
Right.
But they do cause a bit of traffic congestion and pedestrian safety issues. And Busan City is setting off to address this problem.
Right. Maybe if you're a driver, you've been one of the two people or both. Maybe you've been in the drive-through line, which
Yes.
is like jutted out onto the road, and you're just so sorry. But
Yes, but I need that coffee.
But here's a line.
Yes.
Or you've been in the car trying to bypass that line, saying things I can't say on air.
Yes.
So some popular drive-through cafes, they do see these long queues of cars causing traffic congestion. Others, this affects pedestrian safety because the entries or exits cut through or cut across sidewalks. And then sometimes they're not clearly marked. And
Yes.
some drivers really don't look when they're popping out. So Busan City conducted its first audit into drive-through safety.
Yes.
And by the way, a bit of trivia, the first drive-through in all of South Korea was in Haeundae back in 1992.
92.
92. And there are 78 drive-through places in Busan, and that is the highest number out of the entire country. However, a lot of them were lacking in safety measures, with entry paths and sidewalks not clearly marked. They're often the same color, or there are signs and trees that obstruct the view for drivers and pedestrians.
I do have a question, though. I mean, these drive-thrus, do they have to pay some sort of like traffic fee?
Theoretically, yes.
Okay.
It's kind of it's to ease, share the burden that they cause onto traffic, but only 12 of them have paid the fee. And that's only been to the average of 350,000 won per year.
Oh.
So the auditors propose a variety of measures, having the district and county offices issue orders for clear markings and installing safety equipment. Also for the city to establish a traffic impact assessment ordinance for smaller stores and to propose to the land ministry to have these drive-thrus pay the same amount of traffic fees and make that mandatory.
I see. Well, they are very convenient, but sometimes an inconvenience for
Right.
others as well. All right, next up, let's talk about both the calendar and the temperatures. They tell us it is fall, it is autumn, but the leaves looking out our window, still very green. When can we start to see the fall foliage here in Busan?
Okay, worst case scenario, we may see bare trees before fall foliage.
No
Yeah,
단풍?
no 단풍.
Oh.
So there's this weird phenomenon. The leaves are green. Others, if you look, they have started to fall. They've started to turn brown and fall. So no reds or yellows.
Yes.
So according to Busan Meteorological Administration, for 은행나무, the ginkgo trees, their leaf turning season, that's been delayed by about 2 weeks.
2
For
weeks.
단풍나무 maple trees, by about 17 days. In the entirety of the country, only Odaesan and I believe now Mount 설악산 have reached their peak foliage. Others like 내장산, 월출, 두륜, and 한라 mountains, they haven't even begun to see color changes.
And I was out this past weekend.
Right.
and I was just expecting at least a little bit, a tinge. Barely
and you
any.
maybe see like a tinge like at the tip of the
But
trees.
that's it.
That's it.
Right. So why is this?
So climate change. Anything about the nature right now
Yes.
goes back to climate change. Here's the thing: we need that 일교차, the big temperature difference between morning and daytime highs, to stop the production of chlorophyll. That's 엽록소, which makes that green color.
I see.
And then when that chlorophyll production stops, it's when the other chemicals that produce the colors, the reds and oranges and yellows,
Yes.
they show through. But, the weather's been relatively mild recently, at least, compared to the other years.
Yes.
So if the milder weather, but still kind of colder weather continues on, then the colors may not have chance to show through and they just dry up and fall and drop if there is any rain or winds.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for explaining the science behind why we're not seeing the change of colors. Well, lastly, there is a special travel event going on at City Hall today and tomorrow.
Right. So if you have plans, you might want to check that out if you want to travel. So
Yes.
the air travel market that's hosted by Busan City and the Korea Airport Corporation. So this is for the global hub city of Busan to bring more visitors via the Kimhae International Airport. And specifically, there's a goal to reach 10 million international flight users for the year. So that's because after the pandemic, Kimhae has recovered almost all of its usage rates at 95%. But that means we're trying to get to that extra 5%.
Yes.
So this market offers discounted plane tickets and travel programs. There are 10 companies participating, ranging from airlines, tour companies, and duty-free stores.
Well, thank you for letting us know about this and all the updates. We'll check in with you real soon. Thank you, Haley.
Thank you.
Once again, back to our very fun topic. So there was a lookalike contest for Timothy Chalamet, who is, reaching new heights with his career and also his looks. I mean, that's the focus of this whole thing, the celebrity lookalike. So who do you look like in terms of celebrity? Maybe it's the demeanor, maybe it's the physical appearance, or maybe it's even the voice. 자, 우리 그 닮은 꼴 대회에 대해서 이야기를 했는데요. 아주 조금이라도 나는 이 사람 닮았다 생각하는 연예인 누구예요? And for real, because people are asking, 진짜 사진 보낼까요? If you want to, we're not forcing you to, but it's all for fun today. Here is your traffic and weather. It is now time for your traffic report. It's 7:19. There is an accident on the Dongso overpass going out of the city. There's this accident is between a cargo truck and a car on Bumneko ramp. Also, another accident on Cheongwan Sanuplo from Haedong intersection to Cheongwan at the entrance of Gaejwa Tunnel, causing backup there. Looking slow on Luno Samsung-daedo from Myeongji Underpass to Shinho Bridge per usual. Currently, it is 17 degrees Celsius under partially cloudy skies. The daytime high will go up to 24 today. So looking at the weather nationwide, cloud coverage in the southern regions of the country, with the southwestern coast seeing rain starting later tonight. There is thick fog inland, so please be careful when you're driving. This was your traffic and weather.
경동나비의 모델 마동석입니다. 부모님 선물 보일러 어떠세요? 반신욕에 등산 후 샤워에 손주 목욕까지 온수 쓸 일 많아진 요즘 부모님께 한 번 사면 10년은 든든한 나비엔을 선물해보세요. 나비엔 컨덴싱 온 AI.
Are you an early bird? Are you up to date on the news? Are you a trendsetter? For all of the biggest issues from Busan to the world and useful information you need, right here on Morning Wave in Busan.
It is now time for News Digest, and we're going to dive into our first story. It's about North Korea and the talk regarding its human rights. So what's going on there?
Right. So the United Nations has this North Korean human rights rapporteur, who's the special reporter, 북한인권보고관, who reported that Pyongyang has not lifted its border restrictions that it imposed during the COVID pandemic, the very, very strict no movement restrictions. And actually, instead, it's been doubling down on said restrictions. So this rapporteur is Elizabeth Salmon. She made the report at the United Nations headquarters in New York this week. She said that the North Korean regime is not only restricting the freedom of movement, but also the people's rights to choose jobs, food access, and access to information and freedom of expression. So in particular, what's concerning is that North Korea has recently classified commercial or commerce activities, 상거래 활동, selling and trading of goods,
Yes.
as activities that go against their social value. So that basically means people can't go out onto the markets and sell things. And that has in particular restricted women's livelihoods.
Yes.
So Salman also says that the recent report on North Korean human rights that she's compiled, report focuses on compensations and support for victims who have been subjected to torture and after they were forcibly deported back to North Korea. She also addressed the issue with North Korean defectors who may have successfully made it out of the country, but that they cannot contact their family members in fear of retaliation against the family still living in the reclusive country.
Right.
So the South Korean representative to the United Nations, Deputy Ambassador Kim Sang-jin, said that North Korea's extreme militarization, its weaponization, is not possible without its policy of human rights suppressions and violations. And he defined that as being on par with crimes against humanity.
Yes, yes. So while we are on the topic of North Korea, it's been demanding that it not be addressed as such as North Korea, but rather by its official name, by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, the DPRK, or even Joseon.
Right.
Question. Why doesn't South Korea call North Korea by the names that they prefer or it prefers?
Because it's been an issue. It's been made an issue on basically every international stage, whether it be the Olympics, where a North Korean delegation just stopped the press conference in the middle and demanded that the term DPRK be used, or even at the UN General Assembly.
Yes.
So North Korea demands once again that it be called the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or in Korean, that would be 조선민주주의인민공화국. But here's the thing. Here's why we, South Korea, we don't call and actually won't call North Korea Joseon, because it is kind of written in the Constitution. So in Article 3 of the South Korean Constitution, it says that the territory of the Republic of Korea is the Korean Peninsula and its territorial islands. So in Korean 한국 헌법 제3조에 따르면 대한민국의 영토는 한반도와 그 부속 도서로 한다.
Yes.
So this implies that North Korea is illegally, at least under this constitution, occupying the northern lands of the peninsula. So if South Korea were to change a name that we call North Korea to Joseon, then it's kind of marring the justification behind the unification and territorial claims. That we're almost recognizing that we are two separate countries, not joined by the name, the Koreas. So if or when the Kim regime ever topples, then it makes it hard for South Korea to lay claims to the territory.
Yes. So this is, of course, North Korea is such a hot topic these days, and hence we're covering that part of the news. And next, the price of kimchi making this year is higher than in the previous years, making kimchi or kimjang. And that is because of the price of not only the Napa cabbage, the THU, but also the radish. We're talking about
Ooh, so we have specific figures on how much it's going to cost you according to the Korea Price Research Center.
Yes.
So the price of making kimchi for a 4-person family to last you the entire winter is going to be 419,000 won, almost 42만 won. And that's up by nearly 20% last year. And that's because the key ingredients, the vegetables, radishes and Napa cabbages, they went up by at least 60%, at least at the time of the survey. And cabbages right now cost a little over 7,000 won per head. But a bit of good news, though, the seasoning ingredients. So we're talking about leeks, ginger, and hot pepper, 고춧가루. Their prices went down. So there's a relatively stable supply of that.
Sure.
By the way, the prices will go up even further if you're shopping at a larger supermarket, and that'll be about 52만 won, 520,000 won for a family of 4.
Wow.
I know. And by the way, the Price Research Center that said it'll need to monitor if the government's discount policies will or has had an impact.
And there is a very clear reason as to why prices are so expensive. Please.
Right. Land mass. So the physical land for growing these, the Napa cabbage and radishes have hit the lowest.
Okay.
So according to Statistics Korea, because of the heat wave and the rain, the land mass for growing radishes came to 5,000 hectare for the entire country, and that is the lowest ever. And for Napa cabbages, that came to 12,000 hectare, and that's the lowest since 2019. However, production for these vegetables, they're measured by weight. So the reduction of land mass won't necessarily, or doesn't have to, mean that it'll equal lowest production ever, but certainly there will be an impact.
I see, yes. And so when you had me at like 500,000 won.
I know.
Oh, yes. We're going to move on to some international news. Puerto Rico has come up as kind of this last-minute tipping point in the U.S. presidential election.
Right. So a little bit of background on what you need to know.
Yes.
This was a comedian, not Trump himself, but a comedian at a Donald Trump rally in New York earlier this week, made a crude joke that Puerto Rico is, quote, a floating island of trash.
Yes.
So Puerto Ricans in the U.S. and Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico are seething.
Yes.
They're very angry at this joke. And some pundits say that this could bite Republicans, especially in the key swing state of Pennsylvania.
First, though, we do want to get some background regarding the relationship between the United States and Puerto Rico. Additional information.
Right, because for some people, you might think, how are the two related?
It's not a state,
all?
right?
Right. So Puerto Rico is what's called an unincorporated territory of the United States. And it's been that way since 1917. Kind of think of it as like a larger version of Guam or Saipan for our South Korean listeners. It's this odd gray area. Puerto Rico is not a sovereign, independent country. It's also not a U.S. state.
Right.
So what does it mean for the residents of Puerto Rico? Well, the island isn't covered by the U.S. Constitution. Biggest difference, Puerto Ricans cannot vote in U.S. elections.
Right.
They also don't have representation in the Senate, nor the Congress. But that also means that a lot of Puerto Ricans don't have to pay the federal income tax. That's like 1+.
Okay.
So Trump, for his part, the former President Donald Trump, he has already had a tense relationship with the island because while he was president back in 2017, he visited the island after it was ravaged by Hurricane Maria.
Yes.
At which point he just tossed paper towels into the crowds and he denied Maria's official death toll, which at that point experts had put at nearly 3,000.
Oh,
and that led
yes.
to lack of support and resources for the island.
Right. So that's the backdrop of all of this. So let's bring it kind of back and tie it into the election.
Right. So, well, although Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico cannot vote, there are plenty of people of Puerto Rican descent in the U.S. who
Yes,
can vote. So let's look at Pennsylvania and why I say that this may really affect Pennsylvania. Also the topic of our special interview.
Yes.
Well, Pennsylvania is a key swing state. And Democrats there back in 2020 won with a very narrow margin of 1.17%. That is 82,000 votes. I want you to remember that 82,000 votes. Taking a really big generalization, the Puerto Rican or people of Puerto Rican descent, that population in the largest city of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, 90,000.
Oh.
So it's enough to cover that gap.
Yes.
Not saying all Puerto Ricans are going to vote
Of course.
one way. That's such a sweeping generalization.
Yes.
But I'm just giving you the numbers. And the Trump campaign did say that Donald Trump did not approve of the joke, but it was still said during his rally.
And I also want to talk about the Harris campaign because Kamala Harris, or her camp, is trying to walk back a different comment, not made by her, but the usage of the word garbage.
And this comment came from the president himself, U.S. President Joe Biden. So
Okay.
this is connected, of course, to the Puerto Rico comment. So Biden said that, from his home state of Delaware, Puerto Ricans in Delaware are good, decent, honorable people.
Yes.
And he got a little heated and he added, the only garbage I see floating out there are his Donald Trump supporters. So, yeah, and this has obviously angered Trump supporters who have just been called, garbage.
Yes.
So Biden tried to walk back the comments, saying that he was talking about the hateful rhetoric by the comedian. But some pundits, I have seen headlines by reputable foreign press outlets saying that this is an assist for Trump, at least in this very last minute of the elections.
Right.
Harris has been trying to distance herself from the comment, and she promised to represent all Americans in a speech right after the comment.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the latest as we only have a few days left.
Garbage being the key word. Who knew?
We're going to continue to cover what happens because it's such an important vote. Thank you for all the news. We'll check in with you in hour number 2.
See you soon.
Everybody, this was Haley. We are ready for, are we going to get to our song or do we have a photo to share? Okay. This photo, actually, before we get into, yes, this photo is from, I believe, Leslie. She sent us a photo and she gave us permission, by the way. So we're going to post it right now. This is of her. Oh, and this is Leslie on the right. And then if we could do the other photo to compare it to which photo are we? No. Okay. So she posted a photo and through YouTube she sent it. It's actually of Reese Witherspoon and her daughter. I believe her name is Ava Felipe because, yes. Due to copyright issues, we can't post that other photo. And then our next photo is from our listener, Kosu. Where's V? Is he there? Where's 고수님이 누구죠? Okay. So we're looking for everybody. Search with me. Do you see someone that looks like V? So we're trying to figure out who 고수 is. Yes. 누굴까요? 누가 고수님일까요? So we're not sure looking at that photo. But anyhow, we're going to play a song and then we will post more photos with your permission, of course, in just a little bit. This is Candy by NCT Dream as requested by Benny.
그대들과 비교했지 자꾸만 깨어지는 환상 속에 혼자서 울고 있는 초라하게 갇혀버린 나를 보았어 너도 날 거야 너도 날 거야 하지만 아직까지 사랑하는 걸
그래 그렇지만 내 맘속에 너를 잊어갈 거야 머리 위로 비친 내 하늘 바라다 보며 널 향한 마음을 이제는 굳혔지만 웬일인지 내게 더 다가갈수록 우린 같은 하늘 아래서 있었지 단지 널 사랑해 이렇게 말했지 이제껏 준비했던 많은 나를 뒤로 한 채 언제나 네 옆에 있을게 이렇게 약속을 하겠어 저 하늘을 바라다보며
내게 하늘이 열려있어 그래 너는 내 앞에서 있고 그래 다른 연인들을 키스를 해 하지만 항상 나는 너의 뒤에 있어야만 해 이제 그만해 나도 남자대 내 마음 너도 알고 있는 걸 알아 그래 이제 나도 지쳐서 하늘만 바라볼 수밖에
내게 하늘이 열려있어 그래 너는 내 앞에서 있고
그래 다른 연인들은 키스를 해왜 난 너의 뒤에 있어야 할까
햇살에 일어나 보니 너무나 눈부셔 모든 게 다 변한 거야 널 향한 마음도 그렇지만 널 사랑하는 게 아니야 이제는 나를 변화시킬 테니까 머리 위로 비친 내 하늘 바라다 보며 널 향한 마음을 이제는 굳혔지만 웬일인지 내게 더 다가갈수록 우린 같은 하늘 아래서 있었지 단지 널 사랑해 이렇게 말했지 이제껏 준비했던 많은 말을 뒤로 한 채 언제나 네 옆에 있을게 이렇게 약속을 하겠어 저 하늘을 바라보며 한 번 더 말했지 이제껏
준비했던 많은 말을 뒤로 한 채 다시 널 사랑한다고 했지
언제나 네 옆에 있을게 다시 너 혼자 아니야 너의 곁에 내가 있잖아
Welcome back, everybody. Our text topic today is we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. Our main theme for today, it's so important, weather-related damages, and we're in that kind of in-between season between heat waves and cold snaps. South Korea in the past 10 years saw 4 trillion won in damages from natural disasters, and it took 11.8 trillion won to recover from such disasters. And the damages were more pronounced in the non-capital areas. Gyeongbuk topped the list of weather-caused economic damages at over 3.8 trillion won. And all top 5 regions were not located in the capital area. Busan, for its part, saw 680 billion won in economic damages in the last 10 years, 9th out of all 17 metropolitan cities and provinces. But it was far above Seoul and Incheon, which, Incheon is a port city with a similar population. Here's the thing, though. The capital region, with its high population industries, it's responsible for the bulk of the greenhouse gas emissions. But it does seem, if you look at it across the country, that the rest of the country is paying for the costs of this. So, this is why experts call for the government to actively demand that corporations cut down on their emissions. Yes, this is indeed a serious issue. It affects all of us, and hence we're talking about it today. All right, for our text topic today, we've been talking about that lookalike contest involving Timothée Chalamet, but we're asking you, who is your celebrity lookalike? In the looks department, that's like the easiest thing, right? Or maybe you have a similar voice. Maybe someone has told you, oh, your voice, it sounds just like 땡, right? 자, 아주 조금이라도 내가 닮은 것 같은 연예인은 누구? So I know you most likely will say, whenever a listener says, I look like my parents. I'm sure you do, but we're talking about 연예인 닮은 꼴 얘기하는 거고요. 성대모사도 비슷하다, 목소리가 비슷하다 하는 게 뭐 비슷하다 있으면 that's the theme of what we're looking for. And by the way, we're not judging you on your looks. And by the way, our producer says 성대모사 가능하신 분은 전화 연결도 가능합니다. I think she's serious. So yes, we can get that going too. To listen to your voice too. So you're free to do so. And so I believe we have one photo for now that we're going to post. And by the way, we've been getting individual permission from each person. So don't think, so we're covered along those lines. So this is a photo of Taejin Waver. Oh, and that's the photo he sent in. And he wanted to protect his lovely kids, so he had to kind of cut them out. And so, 태진님이 누구 닮았다고 했죠, 아까? Let's see. He said that he looks like, somebody's sending us a message saying 안경 벗으면 살짝 소지섭 느낌도 나고. 근데 우리 본인은 누구 닮았다고 했죠, 우리? 본인. Yes. So this is his photo of himself. And we invite all photos. You can send them to our Kakao Talk channel because obviously you can't post them to YouTube. But for now, we're going to get to Cat's Pick. This is Cat's Pick. We talked about all the weather-related damages, and it's quite serious, climate change. So right now, Spain is going through it as we speak. I have a clip from BBC and ABC News regarding what's happening in Spain.
We start in Spain, where the government has declared 3 days of mourning after at least 72 people were killed in devastating flash floods in the eastern Valencia and southern Andalusia regions. In one town near Valencia, more than a year's worth of rain fell in just 8 hours. Dozens of people remain unaccounted for, and local officials say it's impossible to put a final figure on the number of people who have died.
What we have heard from officials in Spain is to prepare for the death toll to rise significantly as urgent search and rescue operations unfold throughout the day today. And most of the deaths that we know of are reported in the city of Valencia. This flash flooding happening in eastern Spain overnight, washing away cars and causing mudslides. Andalusia and Valencia regions are under red alerts right now, and we've seen images of the floodwaters rushing down streets. Also, the massive emergency response, 1,000 military forces deployed to help. Rescuers using helicopters to pluck people from flooded villages. Others helped out of their homes on foot. Now, officials told ABC News that at one point, more than 600 people were trapped in an IKEA store in Valencia waiting for help. We know that 2 bridges have been swept away in the Ribarroja de Turia area that's northwest of Valencia, and there are concerns that several key roads could collapse. You look at these images and you get a real sense that this is a catastrophe, so much so that the train services in that part of the region have been suspended and Valencia's main airport is closed. And as search and rescues continue, the threat has not passed. Even more rain is expected, and 3 days of national mourning have now been called for everyone impacted.
So as of broadcast time, unfortunately, I believe it's at least 95 now. The numbers keep on going up. And, for us, it's October. We're enjoying the last day of October. But in Spain, this is what they're going through. And the authorities say, unfortunately, the numbers are going to keep on going up. And this was Cat's Pick for today.
Stay tuned. You're listening to Morning Wave in Busan.
It is now time to check in with Chris. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing? I'm good today.
I'm doing well too. We're enjoying our little text topic today, and we're gonna look for the photo that people, this person, I won't say the name yet, that people say looks like you or you look like him, vice versa.
Yeah.
We'll get that going in a little bit. So let's dive into our topic first as we, our producer, give her time to look for a photo.
Give her time to dig around on the
dig
internet.
Around.
Yes.
Yes. So what are we talking about today?
Well, I want to take some time and imagine that you never became the awesome radio host that you are. And instead you chose an entirely different career.
Okay.
I want you to imagine that you're Catherine Bong, archeologist.
I get to be Indiana Jones?
Yes.
Oh.
Dressed in khaki, like maybe
with a
having your
hat.
whip. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
fedora. Love it.
Now, as an archaeologist,
Yes.
what would you say would be the pinnacle, the high point of your career?
Oh, that's a tough one. It has to be like unearthing some sort of like unknown civilization or something that people were like searching for.
Yeah,
if you look at like the movies that this character was featured in, it's like like the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
And like things that are like of
like the little golden idol in the most famous scene, or something like one of these big lost cities like El Dorado or Atlantis, and it's like these things are mythical, especially the cities, because they've never been discovered. But what if you did find a city that nobody knew existed? That's exactly what happened in Mexico in the last couple of years. This was on Tuesday. Researchers announced that they had discovered the ruins of a lost Mayan city that has been named Valeriana.
Valeriana. That's so pretty. Interesting name. And you say it's in Mexico. So where kind of in Mexico? Mexico's a big country.
It is a big country.
Yes.
If you think about where the Yucatan Peninsula is, there's a state in the southeast called Campeche.
Okay.
And the name of it comes from a freshwater lagoon that's nearby it.
Yes. And what do we know about this city?
Well, for one thing, it's actually pretty big. The article I read said that it was about the size of Edinburgh. Now, that's the capital of Scotland. And for anybody who hasn't been there, it's about 16 and a half square kilometers. This city in Mexico that they have found has two major centers with large buildings being about 2 kilometers apart, linked by dense housing and causeways. It's believed to have been home to between 30,000 and 50,000 people at its peak. And it's the second largest Mayan city to have been found after the Calcamul, which is about 100 kilometers away from this city. The site itself is pretty interesting with what researchers call all the hallmarks of classic Maya political capital. Multiple enclosed plazas connected by broad causeways, temple pyramids, a ball court, a reservoir formed by damming and arroyo, which is a seasonal water course, and a probable architectural arrangement that generally indicates a founding date prior to 150 AD.
Yes.
Now, researchers aren't sure why the city disappeared. Most likely it has to do with the collapse of the Mayan civilization, which peaked between 250 and 900 AD, or about 1,500 years ago, according to The Guardian.
Yes.
Now, the city itself was discovered by Luke Auld Thomas. He was a PhD candidate at Tulane University.
Yes.
Now he's in the archaeology department at Northern Arizona University. And the BBC called this an accidental discovery.
Accidental?
Yes.
I love that. The fact that they weren't even really looking for it, but like they stumbled upon it.
Well, I'm not 100% convinced it was an accident. It was discovered by examining LiDAR scans done by other people who weren't looking for the civilization.
Yes.
LiDAR, or is called light detection and ranging. For those who aren't quite sure what it is, it's a remote sensing technology. According to Leah A. Wassener of Neon Science, in a LiDAR system, light is emitted by rapidly firing lasers. This light travels to the ground and reflects off things like buildings and tree branches. The reflected light energy then returns to the LiDAR sensor where it's recorded. After doing a whole lot of calculations, the system shows height density of vegetation as well as being able to cut through trees and see features on the ground that might be missed by an airplane. Now, Auld Thomas found this data when he was going down a Google rabbit hole. Those things are always fun to go down.
Yes.
Yeah, he said, I was on something like page 16 of a Google search and found a radar survey done by a Mexican organization for environmental monitoring in 2013. This organization had done a detailed LiDAR survey of the wider 122-kilometer area. And Al Thomas and researchers at Tulane University, Mexico's National University of Anthropology and History, and the University of Houston's National Center for Airborne Laser Mapping analyzed the survey data to explore the area of Campeche that hadn't been investigated by archaeologists.
I see.
And their analysis turned up diverse range of unstudied Mayan settlements in addition to the city.
Yes.
And the
so,
city is actually very close to the area's only highway. It's actually only a 15-minute hike. So it's surprising that it had never been found before. And while there are no pictures of the place because no one's ever been there, supposedly, even the locals did suspect that there may be something underneath the mounds.
And the fact that once again, he might have gone down a rabbit hole, but it was, that led to the discovery of this hidden city.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing.
And to think about the fact that there might be more, probably much more that we just don't know. And I don't know. So this is probably not the first place that's been discovered by accident, I'm thinking. Or am I incorrect?
No, well, you're quite correct. There are lots of places that have been discovered by accident. A lot of places that have been lost to history. Like some of the most important places have been completely forgotten. Machu Picchu itself was first discovered in 1911 when Hiram Bingham III was searching for the lost capital of the Incas.
Yes.
And completely came across it all by himself. The Terracotta Army in China was discovered in 1974 when Yang Zhifo, a farmer, uncovered pottery fragments while digging a well. And closer to here, the Bukchong Dong burial mounds had been forgotten until 1969 when they were discovered while demolishing a shanty town that had been created by refugees in Dongne during the Korean War.
Right. So definitely not the first and probably not the last. But, these amazing discoveries, they give us insight into, people and cultures and civilization before our time, right?
Yeah. And hopefully they're able to use these advanced techniques like LiDAR to help find them.
Yes. Well, it seems that we are going to call it a wrap for our segment, but thank you so much for bringing in such amazing discovery by an archaeologist, and we can kind of let our imaginations run wild. Maybe we'll find something, stumble upon something
hopefully
amazing.
We can, even if it's not archaeology related, we can always find something amazing, hopefully.
I agree. And I love the rabbit hole, going down and finding troves of treasure. Well, we'll check in with you next week. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
All right. And we weren't able to put the photo up because our producer was busy putting up all the graphics for this segment. But while you're here, so who do people say, oh, we got it?
Oh.
And by the way, so who is this guy?
This is Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's the head of astrology, I believe, at the National Museum in the United States.
Yes. So he's a very well-known figure, I have to say. A little bit of resemblance. You're much more handsome.
Oh, thank you.
So yes, and of course
we do have a similar voice, though.
Yeah. No, that I hear. So, and people were saying as soon as we mentioned we're gonna put somebody up, people were already guessing that it might be.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you a very lovely week. We'll check in with you
too as well
next week.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we're gonna call it for the first hour of Morning Wave in Busan. So here it is. This is 잊혀진 계절 by 이용 as requested by Ida. So enjoy. I'll be back at 8.
기억하고 있어요 10월의 마지막 밤을 만 남긴 채 우리는 헤어졌지요. 그날의 쓸쓸했던 표정이 그대의 진실인가요? 한마디 변명도 못하고 잊혀져야 하는 건가요? 언제나 돌아오는 계절은 나에게 꿈을 주지만 이룰 수 없는 꿈은 슬퍼요. 나 울려요. 그날의 쓸쓸했던 표정이 그대의 진실인가.
Your bridge to the world.
BNK 부산은행과 함께합니다.
The weather is so nice today. I'm sure this won't be a big deal. A 3-second long lapse in judgment can burn up an entire mountain, which will take 100 years to recover. We can protect these lush forests if you follow these guidelines. First, do not bring flammable materials to the mountains. Second, do not cook or camp in the mountains. Third, do not litter cigarette butts. Your small actions are the first step towards protecting the beautiful forest. This campaign is brought to you by BEFM 부산영어방송.
The time is now 8 o'clock.
Good morning, Dynamic Busan.
Yeah, you're waking up. Time to shake it up. Tell the world good morning and find out what's going on.
Well, hi there, folks. There's everything from comedy to lively chat to music.
Broadcasting from a room about the size of your closet.
All calls are recorded. What show is this?
Live from Korea's dynamic city, this is Morning Wave in Busan.
I'm sorry, who'd you say you were?
It's now 8 o'clock. This is news highlights. Seoul to begin talks with Kyiv to step up responses against North Korean troop deployment. The presidential office said yesterday that it will begin talks with Ukraine this week over a visit to Kyiv's special envoy to South Korea, adding that it is necessary to find ways to send South Korean analysts to Ukraine to monitor North Korean military activities. During a phone call with President Yoon Suk-yeol earlier this week, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that he will send a special delegation to coordinate actions in response to North Korea's troop dispatch. In the meantime, the defense chiefs of South Korea and the U.S. jointly condemned the deployment in the strongest terms. Kim Yong-hyun and Lloyd Austin agreed to closely cooperate over the matter with the international community while strengthening combined exercises and training. North Korea completes long-range missile launch preparations. North Korea has completed preparations to launch a long-range missile and has put a mobile launcher in place, with the launch possibly to take place before or after the U.S. presidential election, South Korea's military intelligence agency said yesterday. The Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA, said that the launch could involve an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, and be aimed at testing the North's atmospheric re-entry technology. The DIA also analyzed that North Korea has completed preparations for its 7th underground nuclear test at its Punggye nuclear testing site. South Korea reports season's first avian influenza case. The Agricultural Ministry confirmed the season's first highly pathogenic avian influenza case yesterday at a farm in Donghae and issued a standstill order on poultry farms nationwide. The Agricultural Ministry said that it has culled 780 chickens and ducks at the affected farm and that it plans to bolster disinfection measures at local habitats for migratory birds. It marked the first confirmed case this fall, with the last case being reported in May. SNU deep-fake crime suspect sentenced to 10 years. The Seoul Central District Court yesterday sentenced the main suspect in a high-profile deep-fake crime case involving alumni of Seoul National University to 10 years in prison. The 40-year-old Park was found guilty of producing and distributing fabricated pornographic videos of his school alumni. His accomplice, surnamed Kang, received a 4-year prison term. Both men were alumni of SNU. Park created some 100 deepfake videos and distributed as many as 1,700 videos online between 2021 and April of this year. Investigations identified 61 victims. Paris and Trump continue battleground states tour in the final week of election. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris continue their tour of crucial battleground areas, and both are holding competing events in Wisconsin and North Carolina in the final week of the U.S. presidential election. 3 million people have already voted in the swing state of Georgia, smashing early voting records ahead of the November 5th election. In the meantime, CNN's new poll suggests that Harris leads Trump in 2 crucial battleground states, Wisconsin and Michigan, as a race remains tight in Pennsylvania. And this was News Highlights.
경동나비의 모델 마동석입니다. 부모님 선물 보일러 어떠세요? 반신욕에 등산 후 샤워에 손주 목욕까지 온수 쓸 일 많아진 요즘 부모님께 한 번 사면 10년은 든든한 나비엔을 선물해보세요. 나비엔 컨덴싱 온 AI.
It is now time for Waglwagle. That means Haley's back in the studio with us.
Hello, hello.
It's just a fun day, is it not? It feels
It's
like a
such
Friday.
a fun day. And can
should
we
have done this
find a
tomorrow.
celebrity lookalike for Catherine?
No.
Okay.
No, I am
no.
me, myself, and I. So,
진짜 나만 창피하고.
but some of the messages, like, I gotta read this one from 김복수님, who says this. 원빈 닮았습니다.
그럼 잠깐만요. 그 아저씨 원빈이요, 라이즈 원빈이요. You know there are 2 원빈s nowadays, and that is very telling of your. Not like 아저씨, the from the film. The like the actor or the
not the
idol.
아저씨 looking.
No, I mean he is.
From the
he's married with
married
the child.
kids, but
yeah,
I mean from the film 아저씨
Yeah.
versus Rise.
Yeah. I mean, I would. Can I be like honest? I cannot pick out Rise's Wonbin out of like a lineup. Like he could literally run into
Let
me
me
on the
finish
street.
the message. 자, 김복수 Waver says 원빈 닮았습니다. 눈 2개, 코 1개, 입 1개, 귀 2개요. And then he sent in 13. I counted.
And she counted all of them.
Oh, 15.
Oh
yes.
my gosh.
So I love your sense of humor. This is the whole point. We're not judging people on their looks.
We're not in a beauty.
No.
We're not in a Timothy Chalamet
Yes.
lookalike contest.
And by the way, when Taejinim was saying like he was he looks like Soji-sub. I have to say, in like when I was younger, Soji-sub was like my one pick. I was like in love with him, like the broad shoulders
From the 미안하다 사랑하다 days.
Right. Well, is that I don't know.
Or 발리에서 생긴 일? Yeah.
That plus like there's a couple, but then like the shoulders,
I was
the
team
height.
조인성.
Okay,
all right. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Waglwagle. And do we have one more? Young님, who he kind of goes back in between YouTube and also our Kakao Talk message, and he says this. 자, 우리 엄마 아빠가 저보고 이정재 닮았다고 항상 그래서요. 친구분들 모여 있을 때 이정재 닮았다고 하셔서 너무 민망해요. Oh, but I see the resemblance. I do. Especially the eyes.
And I have to say, 이정재 from 관상 was like my one pick. Oh my God.
Yeah.
The scene with the,
Right.
yeah.
I said Soji-sub used to be my one pick.
Yeah.
That was years ago. Used to be.
관상's 이정재 was my one pick.
네. All right.
So we're done, right? Like
For
this
now.
is
For now.
I mean, no, we're done. Just
Can we just go on with this?
Right.
Let's go into our first story that may cause concern for parents. Apparently, about half of the country's schools have sex offenders living in the close proximity of these schools.
Yeah. By the way, on a personal note, you don't have to be a parent to feel your blood pressure spike.
Yes.
But according to the Gender Equality and Family Ministry's data, this is on the schools that have registered sex offenders living within the 1 kilometer, very much walking distance vicinity. 59% of daycares, 어린이집. 51% of kindergartens, 45% of elementary schools, 48% middle schools, and 53% of high schools.
Yes.
They all have one or more sex offenders living within a 1 kilometer vicinity. In Seoul, that situation was particularly bad. Apparently, 80% of all schools have at least one sex offender in the very close vicinity. And of course, Seoul has a very high population density. But then what about for our city of Busan? Well, 73% of middle schools and high schools had sex offenders in its close proximity. So lawmaker Baek Seung-ah of the Democratic Party, who released the figures, said that this high ratio, it raises public anxiety and asked the security authorities to pay particular attention to make sure that this doesn't necessarily lead to, crimes or further concerns.
Sure, yes. When I saw the story pop up, I was just like, what? Like, am I seeing this right? And it's just like, I'm sure many people are very just flabbergasted, but that's what it is, right? Well, this next story is an eye-opening one about what we should or maybe should not do when paying for parking?
Right, and I do have to give you a trigger warning. This is a disturbing story. There was a gruesome accident on Tuesday of this week where a woman got stuck or crushed between her car and the parking meter and died. Right.
Oh my gosh.
So this was in Dongducheon City in Gyeonggi Province. The driver, who was a woman in her 50s, so she had stopped her car to pay for parking at the entryway, the bars, and it was one of those automated machines. But according to the police, she kept her car in drive. And of course, this is a huge no-no, but something that a lot of us do because we think it's just going to be a brief pit stop where we just put in our ticket or our credit card and get out of there. But then she realized her car was too far from the machine for her to reach. So what she did is, what many of us do, we either open the window or open the door to physically get out and pay.
Right.
She did that, but once again, forgot that she had put her car still in drive. So her foot went off the brake pedal. At which point, of course, the car moved forward and crushing her body between the machine and the car. She was rushed to the hospital in a state of unconsciousness, but didn't make it. And the police are investigating the case. So once again, if you are paying at one of these machines, if your car's not at least in the auto stop mode, at least, you have to put it in park.
Yes. Such a tragic story, but one that needs to be heard. So something like this it doesn't happen again. All right, next up, we're going to go back to the issue of schools, but in a completely different way, because this is in the U.S. and there are dress codes for a variety of reasons, right? And every country or school or district has different rules. So this is about some schools in the U.S. that are banning the very popular Crocs.
Right. Crocs. So I want to ask her waivers, because if you are older, we had more, including me, we had more restrictions on dress codes back in the day. Like, was it 9mm 3cm? That the hair restrictions, we had the finger rule for short skirts. You had to put your arms down and the skirt had to be like longer than where your fingertips touched.
Oh, that's how they did it?
Yeah, that's how that was our school. Well, schools now are making, and our producer, we need a camera on her. She just stood up and did the whole thing.
Right.
Well, schools in over a dozen U.S. states are banning these, the slip-on foam clogs, aka most popular by the brand Crocs.
Yes.
So, I mean, I know a lot of people, from a fashion perspective, don't like them, but a lot of kids do. But go as far as banning them. Why? 2 reasons. Biggest, safety. Second, distractions. So, for instance, Lake City Elementary School in Georgia has updated its dress code to require closed-toed footwear. So, 발가락을 가리는 신발. And they explicitly banned Crocs for safety reasons. By the way, Crocs, aren't they technically closed-toed? Or is
That's
it
why
not
I was
because
like
of the
doing
holes?
a little.
Right. And then similarly, another middle school in Florida has said safe footwear shall be worn at all times and emphasizing, and they have it in all caps, no Crocs allowed. So why? Well, let's go to a TikTok meme or multiple TikTok memes.
Yes.
They basically show, there's a compilation of videos showing teens slipping and falling in school hallways while they're wearing Crocs.
Okay.
And by the way, Crocs, the company even acknowledged this trend on social media. And these shoes they're rubber, rubber soled, and they're especially apparently slippery on wet floors. And, kids and teens, they're full of energy, and they, more often than walking, they're running, especially younger kids. So that poses tripping risks. And because they're slip-ons too, they can fall off your feet very easily.
Right.
And then also, some say that because it is very trendy everywhere in the world to decorate those Crocs with, what are those called? Like javits, the little badges or the little charms and decorations. Some of them do light up, so some schools have banned them for distractions. And then finally, and this is just for like a parental perspective, podiatric medical experts, so for podiatry, for feet doctors, they say the shoes don't really give a lot in terms of arch support. So this could be, and that can also be bad for your foot health, for developing feet. And then also because they're rubber, it kind of locks in the moisture.
That's true.
And that leads to anything as small as, stinky feet to, well, have you been around, for example, a second grader boy, maybe a part of my family, after he's been running around in Crocs? Yeah, you're marching to the bathroom. Yeah, I mean, I will keep his dignity. And that can cause blisters to, fungal issues.
Yeah, but I can see why. And even here, schools, from what I understand, most schools, at least public schools, they don't allow this type of that brand for the so-called 실내화. They're not allowed.
For indoor shoes.
For indoor shoes, right. So, there are issues. All right. Lastly, yesterday we talked about this amazing kimbap festival. Now, another city is holding a different yummy, delicious festival.
They have to combine these because
What is it?
in Gyeongbuk, gearing up for its ramen festival, ramen 축제, and that starts tomorrow. This is the third year for the festival, and it is gunning for the title of the world's longest ramen restaurant. So from the moment apparently you will step out from Kumi Station, there's going to be a 475-meter festival space with 15 local chefs and apparently 3 nationally famous restaurants, all presenting their own ramen recipes.
Yes.
But then you might be wondering, all right, so Kimcheon, we get it because kimbap and Cheongguk, the brand, but so Kumi ramen, like why?
What's the connection?
Well, the city is home to the country's largest ramen manufacturing plant. Yeah, and also that plant in particular makes the best-selling ramen in the country. It's the spicy one with the 매울. Yeah. And they are responsible for 75% of the supply of that particular ramen. Makes sense.
Yes.
Apparently, some people online say that ramen, even the instant ramen, tastes different when it's like freshly out of the factory. So, I mean, if you're gonna go, you might want to check that out. And
Does it?
So
now I'm so curious.
Someone go and fact check this. BFM, send me so I can fact check this.
I was going to say, I nominate Haley.
I nominate myself too.
Yes.
Check Anyways, it out. That's what's happening.
So on the topic of ramen, this ramen boiling machine is a huge moneymaker. So what are
Have
you
you tried that? So it's not for 컵라면, it's for 봉지 ramen, the ramen that comes in a package.
Okay.
But there are machines, and it's usually associated with the Han River because the 한강라면. Right. So this is the machine where you put the ramen, the uncooked ramen, the seasoning in a bowl, usually like tin foil or paper, and you put it on top of this machine, click one button, 3 minutes later, voila, it's done.
Yes.
And then for all 3 minutes, you marvel at the technological advancement, personal experience. All right, well, this manufacturer of that machine has just struck an $8 million deal at the Korean Products Expo in Vienna, Austria.
Wow.
So K-ramen, but K-ramen machines are also going global.
Apparently.
So that machine, or the bulk of the market's machines, are manufactured by this particular Incheon area company. It struck a $5 million deal with a U.S. firm that's owned by a Korean-American entrepreneur who's looking to really capitalize off the scenes from K-dramas where they do make that ramen on the machine.
Sure.
Also, the firm signed deals with the Bulgarian and Chinese buyers. So yeah, K-ramen.
I guess. I mean, who doesn't like ramen?
Right?
I mean, let's just say I don't know anybody that doesn't. So, well, thank you for going over all the interesting stories. We'll check in with you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
And it's time for your updated traffic and weather. It is now 8:19. Here's your traffic update. There is a cargo truck that is broken down on Bunyeongyo coming into the city. It's right inside of the Gwangan Tunnel. It's causing backup. Also congested on Gwangan-daegu, the upper portion going toward the Daeun overpass. Also looking slow on Chungnyeol-daero from Dongnae intersection to Daesung intersection. It's currently 17 under partially cloudy skies. It's going to go up to 24 today. Across the nation, cloud coverage can be expected in the southern regions of the country, with the southwestern coast seeing rain starting late tonight. There is some thick fog being reported inland, so that means be careful as you head out today. This was your traffic and weather. And here's our next song. This is 한 페이지가 될 수 있게 by Day6.
솔직히 말할게 많이 기다려왔어. 너도 그랬을 거라 믿어. 오늘이 오길 매일같이 달력을 보면서 나에게도 지금 이 순간은 꿈만 같아. 너와 함께라. 오늘을 위해 대만을 널 준비해봤어. All about you. 나의 다른 건 다 제쳐두고 나 commit me to my hand. 아름다운 청춘의 한 잔 함께서 내려가자. 너의 추억들로 가득 채울래. 아무 걱정도 하지는 마. 나에게 다 맡겨봐. 지금 이 순간이 다시 넘겨볼 수 있는 한 페이지가 될 수 있게. This is our page. Our page. 솔직히 말할게 지금이 오기까지 마냥 순탄하진 않았지. 오늘이 오길 나도 못 받아라 기다렸어. 솔직히 나보다 더 네가 몇 배는 더 힘들었을 거라고 믿어. 오늘을 위해 그저 견뎌줘서 고마워. All about you. 나의 다른 건 다 제쳐두고 나 commit me to my hand. 아름다운 청춘의 한 잔 함께서 내려가자. 너만큼 추억들로 가득 채울래. 아무 걱정도 하지는 마. 나에게 다 맡겨봐. 지금 이 순간이 다시 넘겨볼 수 있는 한 페이지가 될 수 있게. Want you to come on now and have fun. Us to have the time of our life. 너의 추억들로 가득 채울래. 아무 걱정도 하지는 마. 나에게 다 맡겨봐. 지금 이 순간이 다시 넘겨볼 수 있는 한 페이지가 될 수 있게. This is our page. Our page.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you were enjoying that song. So let's wrap up our discussion about this whole who do you look like celebrity-wise. So, I have to say for the waivers that sent in the photos, took that extra time and also gave us permission to post your photos and the look-like celebrity. I do thank you for that because I know it takes a certain amount of courage to do that. And so I think we might have one more right now. No. Okay, so it's not ready yet. Anyhow, so for our special interview, right, this is really important because the election, it's coming up real soon. It is next week. And we've been talking about the battleground states. So we're going to focus on one in particular. So I'll be back in just a moment. This is our special interview, and as I just said, the U.S. presidential election is literally right around the corner. And Pennsylvania, we hear about the state quite a bit, right? Once again stands out as a critical battleground state that could sway the outcome of the entire election. So with its mix of urban, suburban, and rural communities, the state captures a very broad spectrum of voter concerns and shifting demographics. So key issues such as the economy, healthcare, and education are driving decisions among Pennsylvania's diverse electorate. So let's look into Pennsylvania, take a look at these trends, maybe get a glimpse of what might come November 5th. We have joining us Dr. John J. Kennedy, professor in the Department of Political Science at Westchester University. Hi, thanks for joining us.
Hi, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So first of all, I understand that you are actually in Pennsylvania. Is that correct, Professor?
I am. I'm located in the southeast, about 45 minutes from the city of Philadelphia.
Yes. So what's like the general atmosphere right now in Pennsylvania? Are people excited about November 5th? What's the kind of the feeling right now?
Well, excited, but also a bit weary. I mean, the amount of attention, but, the campaign advertising. I think most of the voters I speak to are looking forward to November 6th, the day after.
Indeed. And so as we approach that day, November 5th, what are the current trends among Pennsylvania voters? We're talking like, for example, party preference, key issues, and also the voter turnout. What can we expect?
So, Pennsylvania is the quintessential swing state. It has been for 75 years, really since the 1950s. And what makes it so important, there are other swing states, but what makes Pennsylvania so important is it is the largest of the swing states. So with 19 electoral votes, it's difficult. It's certainly possible. It's difficult, though, to imagine one of the two candidates not winning Pennsylvania and still claiming the big prize of the presidency.
Right.
More than any other state, Pennsylvania is going to determine whom the next president of the United States is.
Yes. So can you explain this whole idea of being a swing state to our listeners here in Korea and abroad? But if you could explain that whole idea and why Pennsylvania's role is going to be so important in deciding probably the outcome of this election.
Sure. Generally, especially today, we have a very polarized environment. What that means is you have, a lane for Democrats, a big pocket of Democratic votes in states. You have a big pocket of Republican votes in states. Each control about 220 electoral votes. And there's really very little doubt where those states are going to fall. And so when you look at Pennsylvania, we are the fifth largest state. And of the four larger states, the four states larger than Pennsylvania, California and New York are going to be reliably Democratic votes and states for Kamala Harris. Florida and Texas are fairly reliable, certainly even today, for the Republicans. And so there are really only like 7 states which are essentially up for grabs. And that's where the candidates are spending an enormous amount of money and resources and boots on the ground, campaigning, door knocking, and of course, advertising on television. Everything is concentrated in these states. And more than any of those states, Pennsylvania really is the key because it is the largest.
Right. If I'm not mistaken, 19 electoral votes, is that correct?
That's correct. Which is all predicated on, I'm sorry. It's all predicated on the number of members we have in Congress. So we have 17 House members and 2 U.S. senators, as every state has. And so that makes up, 19 electoral votes.
Yes, and what is the magic number once again? We, on election day, we always see the graphics on, the networks. What's the magic number to get to the White House?
The magic number is 270. So it's a majority, which is 50% plus one, and there are overall 435 House seats plus the 100 Senate seats plus 3 votes for the District of Columbia. Yes. It all adds up to 538. And you split that, and you get to 269 plus 1, the majority, and you get to 270.
Ah, yes. Well, can we talk about the particular groups of voters in Pennsylvania? Because obviously there are, voters in the suburbs. We have the working class voters, and obviously they're not going to vote, necessarily 100% one way or the other. But there are general trends. So what's their support been like?
So really, you divide the state into essentially 3, as most states. You have the urban, suburban, and rural areas. Pennsylvania has 2 relatively large cities, one Philadelphia, one of the largest cities in the United States in the eastern part, yes, and Pittsburgh in the western part, which is more of a Midwestern city, but again, very democratic. And then you have wide swaths of rural areas. Rural Pennsylvania comprises the vast majority of the state land-wise, and it tends to be very Republican, unlike the cities, which are Democratic. And then you have the suburbs, especially surrounding Philadelphia, and which is where I'm located, areas like the Lehigh Valley, Allentown, Bethlehem, and suburbs of Pittsburgh. They are really going to decide the election. Democrats have been better in recent years in the suburbs. They now control the suburbs. But Republicans have made up ground in the rural areas where Democrats at one time may have been somewhat competitive. They become extraordinarily red and very Republican.
And so when we look at some of the specific issues, Professor, what are the issues that are driving the voters to actually go and vote? What do they care about?
I would say that the 2 primary issues the Republicans are hammering on are the economy and the border and the immigration policy.
Yes.
And for the Democrats, certainly the economy is a big issue for them as well. And they have made inroads. They have closed the gap. The vice president has closed the gap as far as who the public favors on the economy nationally and also in Pennsylvania. But abortion rights, women's rights is a big issue in Pennsylvania as it is nationally as well. And of course, the whole question of democracy and the personality of the candidates, particularly, of course, the former president, Donald Trump. One issue that is somewhat unique to Pennsylvania, particularly in the western part of the state, where it is an important job producer, is the issue of fracking, the extraction of natural gas. That's not an issue here in the Southwest because we don't do it here in the Southeast. We don't have gas wells in the Southeast. But across the western part and much of the northern tier of the state, it is an important industry and a lot of jobs dependent upon it. And while, several years ago when she ran for president herself in 2020, the vice president, Kamala Harris, was on the record as being opposed to fracking. Mm-hmm. And that's, so she's had to do some change. She had to do some cleanup on that issue and say she said she's reevaluated it as president. She has a larger view, and now she is no opposition to fracking. So that's, I think, the one issue, particularly in some parts of the state, which separate Pennsylvania from sort of these national issues, which are big everywhere.
Yes. So going back to how things might turn out on November 5th, of course, time will tell. We don't know for sure. But, I mean, how close do you think it's going to be? Because, I do see other pundits and experts saying, it's going to be close, and Pennsylvania is going to be so important. And you've pointed out, the urban, suburban, the rural voters, they might vote sway a different way. But just how close do you think it's going to be?
It's going to be close, but how close? Trump won it by 40,000 roughly in 2016. Biden won it by a little over 80,000. So, you could be in that range. It could be closer.
Yes.
Again, it is so. I wish I had a crystal ball and I could tell you. But but everyone's guessing. When you look at polls, pollsters have their own models. When you look at some of the district polls of congressional districts, it looks good for Harris. The numbers seem to support the idea that that we're at where we were at least in 2020, if not a little better. But there's no way of knowing. Certainly, the ground game. The Harris campaign has established 40 field offices across the state. And they have, volunteers throughout the country have come to Pennsylvania, knocking on doors, getting out the vote. We do have mail-in voting in Pennsylvania, so people can vote early. And then the parties can track that. They know who's voted, who hasn't. And then they can knock on the door and contact people who haven't yet voted. The Trump campaign, they don't have that kind of operation internally. They have farmed a lot of it out to third-party contacts, particularly Elon Musk's organization. And historically, those kind of relationships are not as successful as when your neighbor or someone down the street knocks on your door. Someone from outside coming in. But again, it could be. We could wake up. And I'm not, this is no secret. We could wake up the next day and say, well, and Harris, let's say, wins by maybe 3 or 4 points relatively comfortably and say, well, why didn't we see that? Why didn't we see those numbers? We should have, it was there all the time. On the other hand, again, we could have a close election either way for Harris or Trump. It's difficult to envision Trump winning by 3 or 4 points because he's never reached nationally more than 47. So to win, he really needs 48, 49%. I mean, there will be some third party votes siphoned off, but it's hard to envision him getting, as he's such a well-known quantity. Of course, he's dominated American life for a decade. It's hard to envision him getting, 51, 52% of the vote nationally. And I think the Pennsylvania vote is probably going to largely reflect the national vote.
Well, we will be, of course, tuning in, eyes locked on Pennsylvania come election day. But thank you so much for sharing, of course, the local concerns and what voters are looking for in the road to the U.S. presidential election. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And this was Dr. John J. Kennedy with his take on where Pennsylvania voters stand. So this is going to be a state that we're going to be keeping a close eye on as we cover the road to the White House. All right, that does it for our special interview. So here is our next song. This is Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls.
Forever to touch you, 'cause I know that you feel me somehow. You're the closest to heaven that I'll ever be, and I don't wanna go home right now. And all I could taste is this moment, and all I can breathe is your light. And sooner or later it's I just don't want to miss you tonight. And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand. When everything's made to be broken, I just want you to know who I am. Fight the tears that ain't coming, all the moment of truth in your lies. When everything feels like the movies, yeah, you bleed just to know you're alive. And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think they'd understand. When everything's made to be broken, I just want you to know who I am.
It is time for City Insights, which means hands here.
Good morning.
I love the bangs.
Hi, thank you.
Loving it.
Yes, freshened up my bangs.
How
are you?
I'm doing great, but I hear that you have willingly participated in our text topic.
Yes. I recently found out that I might have a doppelganger.
Who do you look like?
A K-pop idol. An older generation K-pop idol. Should we pull up the picture now?
Okay.
Isn't it pretty uncanny? I love it. So this is a picture of Shindong of Super Junior.
I love your photo. Where's that from?
And me, that's a recently taken headshot. But yeah, I think we look alike. Here's another picture where we have a similar
And by the way,
hairstyle.
these are all from him. We didn't like...
No, I made it. And I don't know. I like it. I think he's adorable. I don't have his sharp dance moves, but whenever I see him pop up on the television, I'm like, hey, brother.
Mr. Shin.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Wavers? Do we look alike? I think so.
Shindo, little. I see that. I think the eyes. You guys have the eyes. You guys have pretty eyes.
The chubby cheeks. I don't know. There's something there.
All right, we're going to jump into our City Insights. What do you have for us today?
Okay, so for our first insight, in honor of Dokdo Day, which was last Friday, I met with someone who introduced me to a not so well-known figure in Korean history, and that's Anyongbok 장군. So Mr. Kim Yong-man from the Anyongbok Memorial Association joined me. And so Anyongbok, he was born in 1654, actually here in Busan's Donggu Jacheondong.
Okay.
And he grew up near the Japanese trading post, also known as the Waegwan. So he was able to learn the Japanese language early on. And because he spoke Japanese, he had a lot of interactions with the Japanese traders at the time.
Sure.
And that sparked his curiosity about Ulleungdo and Dokdo. He later on joined the Navy and became an outstanding rower.
Yes.
Now, the important mark that he made in terms of Dokdo Island is this. So back in the day, our country had this policy of evacuating certain islands to keep them safe from illegal activities or attacks from Japan.
Okay.
And Ulleungdo was one of those, but at the time, Japanese were sneaking in to fish there illegally. And when Anyongbok heard about this, he knew that he had to do something about it and step up. So one day, he confronted a group of Japanese fishers near Ulleungdo, and as a result, he got captured and taken to Japan. But even as a prisoner, instead of pleading for his life, he took a strong stance and somehow scored this official document from both the local lord and the Edo shogunate declaring that Ulleungdo and Dokdo were indeed Korean territory and off limits to the Japanese.
Very important.
But on his way back, he unfortunately got detained and the document was confiscated. And you would think that when he came back to Joseon at the time, he would be praised for this, but instead he was imprisoned for 2 years for crossing the border without permission. But did that stop him? No. He, after serving his sentence, he made a bold return trip to Japan, this time bringing along a group of monks and boatsmen, sailed back to Ulleungdo and chased those same Japanese fishermen all the way to Japan.
Oh my goodness.
And again, he managed to get the shogunate to promise that they would not invade or fish in Ulleungdo again.
Right.
And later that year, he returned home to Gangwon-do. And so I think it's an amazing story where
he has gusto, guts. He has it.
And it wasn't like he was asked to do it. It was just on his own accord. But unfortunately, at the time, the Joseon court, they had a lot of internal conflicts about this, and they didn't follow up on this. And rather wanted to keep this under wraps, hence punishing him for this instead. But what's great is that there was still documentation of what happened here.
Yes, and the thing So is this why he isn't as well known as maybe other figures?
Yeah, so it was only in 1954 that he was given the posthumous title 독전왕, which translates to King of the Battle for Dokdo. And around that time, the Memorial Association for him was formed, officially recognizing him as Admiral 장군, 안영복 장군.
Yes.
And even until now, they continue to hold events to promote his legacy and spread the word about his achievements through performances. They even have a martial arts competition in his honor coming up soon. And last week on Dokdo Day, they held the first memorial service for him on the islands of Ulleungdo and Dokdo.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm so happy that we are getting the word out, that more people are getting to know about him and his legacy.
Yes, and I think that his bravery can be a reminder to us even today of the importance of standing up for what you believe in and what you believe is right.
Yes, yes.
This was his attitude, right? Like, oh, this isn't right. I'm going to do something about it. And also, I'm so curious. I wish there were cameras following him around. How was he able to get that document and acknowledgement from the Japanese without starting a battle? And I don't know, if he was around these days, I think people would definitely think he has mad riz.
Oh, I remember that word, riz, charisma.
You know, I could see him like definitely being interviewed on that Yujaseok interview show. Talking about what happened. Yeah.
No, he would be here on Morning Wave in Busan.
Definitely.
And of course, your show as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. So thank you for sharing this and all this wealth of information for our listeners. But we're going to move on to our second insight. So what is this one about?
All right. So from Dokdo to drones.
Love the segue.
This one comes from the CEO of the company called Marine Drone Tech, Mr. Hwang Hee-chul. So last week at Busan Citizens Park, there was this test run for drone food delivery.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so people would order food on their phones, and the drones would pick it up from the food court inside the park and literally having food delivered from the sky. And yes, this was the company that ran this demonstration.
Ooh.
He said that people were definitely fascinated by this, taking a lot of photos, and it was meaningful in getting people used to the idea that drones are and can become a part of our daily lives.
Yes. I mean, just a few years back, maybe 5 years back even, it was kind of like, yeah, we know we talked about drones. We knew drones were out there. Some people partook in the whole drone industry, but now, I mean, much more so, as you just said, a part of our daily lives, right?
It's imagine getting drone food delivery. That's something out of like a movie, a futuristic movie.
I'm all for
back,
it,
right?
Yes.
Like you said, we are used to the idea of drone photography and used for spraying pesticide for farming.
That's right.
And this delivery through drones, it's quite new. So I asked Mr. Hwang Hee-chul if he sees this getting commercialized anytime soon. So let's have a listen.
이미 상용화돼서 선원들은 드론으로 받아서 이제 즐겁게 드시고 계시거나 필요한 물건을 받고 있고요. 그거는 이제 전국에서 부산이 제일 먼저 시작을 했습니다. 21년도에. 근데 다만 이제 그 육상이죠. 이제 도심 속으로 가는 거는 현재까지는 좀 제한이 있어서 열심히 하고 있고요. 지금 현재 우리가 1000회 이상의 배송 실적을 보유하고 있습니다.
네.
우리가 집에서 배달 음식을 시키거나 배달을 시키면 평균적으로 한 40-50분 정도 걸립니다.
그렇죠.
저희도 마찬가지입니다. 저희한테만 갖다 주시면 5분 이내에 원하는 곳으로 갑니다. 드론 배송은 국가적으로 지금 굉장히 배송에 소외된 공간들이죠. 섬, 선박, 시골, 산골로 지금 역점적으로 실증 사업들을 지자체와 연계해서 하고 있습니다. 그래서 향후 2-3년 내에는 우리가 원하는 곳에서 오토바이가 배달이 못 가는 곳에 드론이 배송하는 시대가 곧 올 거다. 저는 그렇게 예상하고 있습니다.
Yeah, so he shared that drone delivery has actually been happening at sea for sailors and ship crew members. Started first in our country in Busan in 2021.
Right.
But when it comes to drone delivery on land, there are still a lot of limitations and regulations to sort out. So they are working on that.
Sure.
He said his company completed over 1,000 deliveries so far. And food delivery takes only about 5 minutes once the food gets to them. So yeah. And he says around the country, there's a movement to use drone deliveries for isolated areas, like in the deep rural areas or islands or on ships.
Yes.
So he predicts that in the next couple of years, we'll be seeing more and more of drone deliveries made to places that cars or motorcycles can't reach.
Right. And, if you're a person who is in a remote area or not on land necessarily, and you need these type of service, so amazing, right?
Definitely. So do we have time for another clip?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so I was curious how this started, this service started. So let's take a listen to Mr. Choi Chang-chul telling the story behind it.
저는 이제 해양대학을 졸업하고 선박 근무를 하러 가야 되는데 해군으로 갔습니다. 이제 20년 동안 해군에서 배도 타고 비행기도 타고 그런 경력을 갖고 있고요. 제대를 하고 창업을 해서 부산으로 해양드론 기술이라는 회사를 차렸는데 제가 이제 해양대학 출신이고 제 친구들 선후배들이 전부 배에 관계되는 일을 하고 선원들이 많이 있습니다. 그래서 2년 동안 갇혀서 나오지 못하고 있는 이 선원들의 그 어려움을 저도 선원이었던 시절이 한때 있어서 풀어주자. 그래서 내가 지금 하고 있는 드론으로 뭐 조금 갖다 주면 영도에서 배까지는 2km, 3km 내에 배들이 있어요. 그래서 갖다 주면 얼마나 좋을까. 그래서 이 사업을 한번 고민해서 시작을 했고요.
Yes, so before starting this company, he served in the Navy for 2 decades. So he firsthand knows like how isolating it can be to work on a ship. So the inspiration behind the service, it started from thinking, wouldn't it be nice to get, a warm meal or other essentials delivered to his colleagues and friends who are stuck on board.
Yes.
And he said it got really great responses, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. This one ship crewman sent him a message saying like, it's been ages since he had a warm bowl of jjajangmyeon delivered to him. So yeah, I think moving forward, a lot has to be tackled in terms of, flight zone regulations and whatnot. But he believes that our city has a lot going for this. I mean, we are the maritime capital of Korea.
Yes.
So yeah, a lot of growth potential in this new sector.
Right. So I hope that this grows, this whole industry.
Yeah.
So that people can be better served, right?
I'd love to send a handwritten letter to a friend via drone.
Right, that would be so nice. I love the idea. And unfortunately, I have some not so great news to share with our waivers. So we sadly are going to say goodbye to Haeyeon. This is her last time on air with us at this time is what I'm going to leave it at because
I would there's no such thing as forever goodbye, so
of course
I will be back in a different capacity or different segment
hopefully
one day but soon. Yeah, I loved hanging out with you, 피디님 and Haley. I love the Morning Wave team. I am a waver myself.
Oh yay. She is. So thank you so much for your months and months of just gathering these clips and editing it just for our listeners. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
Everybody, this was Haeyeon for now. Oh, tears. Seriously, it's so sad. But by the way, 가보자고 waiver says, maybe the lips look alike, Haeyeon and Shindong, but Haeyeon's eyes are prettier. Exclamation point. We're going to end it on that note. Well, we're going to get to our final song, When October Goes, by Barry Manilow. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.
And when October goes, the snow begins to fly above the smoky roofs. I watch the planes go by, the children running home beneath a twilight sky. Oh, for the fun of them, when I was one of them. And when October goes, the same old dream appears, and you are in my arms to share the happy years. I turn my head away
the helpless tears. Oh, how I hate to see October go. The